Here is the story I heard related to internal control and fraud. So I want to share the story that helped me understand the meaning of those concepts. And today I want to talk about the case of Nissan's internal control failure. Nissan is a Japanese multinational automobile manufacturer headquartered in Japan. In 2013, Nissan was the sixth largest automaker in the world. And Carlos Ghosn is the man in the picture. He is the CEO and the chairman of Nissan in June 2000. Ghosn became its president and then was named chief officer in June 2001. When he joined the company, Nissan had a net debt of more than 20 billion, but in 2002, and a 50% of reduction in the current level of debt at the end of this year. Nissan's net profit after tax climbed to 2.7 billion for fiscal year 2000, from a consolidated net loss of 6.46 billion in the previous year. So Nissan had returned to profitability, and within 3 years it was one of the industry's most profitable automakers, with operating margins consistently above 9%, more than twice the industrial average. The goals of Nissan revival plan were all reached before 13th March 2002. But on 19th November 2018, the Tokyo District prosecutors arrested Ghosn for questioning over allegations for false accounting. The prosecutors arrested him on suspension of understating his pay in financial statements. This case was clearly a huge failure of corporate safeguards and internal control. The reality, however, is that Mr. Ghosn's Nissan was no paragon of governance. Nissan lacked committees for audit, nominations, and remunerations, leaving those functions in control of executives. Even after stepping down as CEO, Mr. Ghosn dominated the board. Only one-third of board members are independent, at least in theory. Nissan's board gave Ghosn authority to set executive compensation, including his own. The investigation found that between 2009 to 2018, Ghosn worked with Kelly to hide 90 million of compensation from the public. The two also worked to add more than 50 million of retirement allowance for Ghosn. Each year, Ghosn declared a certain amount paid, while another amount remained unpaid and undisclosed. The ex-Nissan head worked in various ways to shuffle the disclosed money to Ghosn after his retirement. Reports in the Japanese media state that Nissan was paying all or some of the costs as some amount of $18 million for resistance used by Ghosn in the company, Paris, and other places. And Ghosn charged family vacation expenses to the company. The purchases of some of this resistance and the payment of expenses were handled by a share company named ZIA Capital BV based in the Netherlands, which Kelly has instructed the Nissan's board to set up to make venture investment at the end of 2000. Around the same time, Ghosn divorced from his first wife and the beginning of the relationship with his second wife. Nissan funds was used to purchase Ghosn's Paris apartment in 2005, and the ZIA funds were used to purchase his 5 million beachfront IRO apartment in 2012 and his mansion, which, with renovations, cost over 15 million. Nissan compliance auditors began trying to track ZIA activities in 2014, but were stemmed first by the chain of the share companies used in ZIA investments. In addition, to avoid reporting the full amount of his compensation in Nissan's financials, as required by Japanese law beginning in 2010, Ghosn had clearly structured complicated deferred payment plans which went unreported under the aggressive interpretation of the disclosure rules which Nissan's outside auditors had not signed off on, and which totaled around $8 million at the time of his arrest 8 years later. According to newspaper reports, Golson told the investigators that he instructed Kelly to handle the compensation reporting in a legal manner, and Kelly told the investigators that he acted on advice from outside law firms and the financial service agency. In handling the reporting, leaks to the media said that Golson has planned to call a vote to fire Nissan CEO Saikawa and reinstate Kelly, who had semi-retired to the US in 2015, to active service at the scheduled board meeting. And here on 21 December 2018, Golson was re-arrested on suspicion of shifting to Nissan's personal losses of $16.6 million related to a personal swap contract in October 2008. This is the year of global financial crisis. The introduction of those charges prevented Golson's release on bail late the same day, because the new charges permitted an additional 2 to 20 days of interrogations prior to a bail hearing. Subsequent reporting linked this charge to Golson's dealing with the company and the vice chairman of one of Saudi Arabia's largest conglomerates and the majority owner of the company, which owns half of the joint venture called Nissan Gulf, with the other half held by a wholly owned Nissan subsidiary, in return of a personal letter of credit from the company during the 2008 crisis, which served as a bank demand controlled for Golson's swap contract. So what happened? This all comes back to a lack of internal control. The investigation shows that Golson broke Japan's security law by feeding the wrong numbers to Nissan's board and its accountants. If the board generally didn't know that the disclosure of his remuneration was inaccurate, that doesn't say much of governance, and if they didn't know, they should take collective responsibility for the failure. So the case of Nissan is quite similar to the mini auditor part, the company APE. It also shows that the internal control is weak, and because of the CEO and the board director it's so dominate that the self-auditor interest is got under threat. So this is the story I heard, and helped me to understand the internal control issues and the fraud concept.